The text that detonated my life arrived at 2:07 a.m., when only drunks, new parents, and people who can outrun their thoughts are awake. Subject: Request for confirmation, scholarship verification. Body: Dear Mr. N, as part of our need-based scholarship review, we ask parents and students to confirm medical history and close relatives. Genetic risk factors. If you could reply with your blood type and any major hereditary conditions, we'll finalize Ava's file. 2 lines. 15 years of my inbox, and this was the one that split me open. I stared at the email on my phone until the screen went to sleep. Woke it up, stared again. Blood type: easy. I've known mine since I was 16, and a Red Cross nurse called me a universal donor, like she was pinning a medal on my arm. O negative. Hereditary conditions. My father died of nothing the doctors could predict. He just leaned on a shovel one afternoon and didn't stand up again. My mother's bones creak like an old ship, but refuse to sink. We're boring in the genetic lottery. I typed O and stopped because an image flashed. Ava, 5 years old, perched on the kitchen bar stool with a bandage on her knee and a popsicle that dripped a red map down her wrist. We'd been reading the little blood type chart that came on the back of a cereal box, the kind that thinks it can explain heredity with 4 squares and a smile. I remember because she'd asked why her O-positive blood was plus and mine was minus, and I had said something dumb about plugs and sockets and how her blood had a hat and mine didn't. She'd laughed so hard she hiccuped, purple tongue flashing like a flag. O-positive. I felt the room tip, the way an elevator does when it chooses a direction. O negative and B positive. Her mother, Leah, can make O positive, can't they? I tried to drag high school biology out of the attic of my brain. The only thing up there was dust and a poster of a rock band I never confessed to loving. I googled, can O negative plus B positive make O positive child? 1,000 answers, half of them written by people who sounded confident and wrong. I switched to how to confirm parentage without blowing up your family. The internet offered me paternity test ads like coupon codes for doom. My thumb hovered over Leah's name. We have been married 22 years. Our daughter is 20, almost 21, with a laugh that makes waiters flirt and a stubbornness that would terrify me if I hadn't been 20 once. I could wake Leah and ask a simple question about high school biology, about cereal box charts and hats on blood cells. I could, but the clock said 2:09 a.m., and there are questions that, when asked at that hour, never stop echoing. I didn't wake her. I answered the email. O negative. No known hereditary conditions on my side. Then I set my phone face down and tried to sleep, on top of a buzzing beehive. In the morning, Leah made coffee and I watched her hands. She is a physical therapist. Her fingers move with the knowledge of where pain lives and how to ask it to leave. She handed me a mug and said, "You look like you slept inside a blender." I nearly said, "What blood type are you again?" What I said was, "Do you remember the cereal box, the blood type thing? They still do that?" She smiled. "They still put puzzles on the back of cereal." "Yes. Why?" "Just wondering," I said. "Ava's scholarship office wants medical history." I told them O negative. "Right," she said. "Breezy. Mr. Universal Donor. I've heard the speech." She kissed my cheek and reached for her keys. "I'm late. Ava's stopping by after class. She wants to show you her printmaking project. She texted last night." "Did you see it?" I had. A photo of a lino cut that looked like it could slice opinions open. She was always carving something: potatoes as a child, rubber as a teen, now blocks of gray that she coaxed into black hand white thunder. I thumbed a heart on the text and closed my hand around the ache. At lunch, the ache sharpened. I bought a saliva kit at a pharmacy on the other side of town because shame has a silly belief in geography. The cashier didn't look at me any differently. Then he looked at the guy buying ant spray. I shoved the kit into my backpack like contraband and felt like a man smuggling a question. For 2 days I carried the box around like a secret pet, feeding it nothing, telling it nothing. On the 3rd night, after Leah fell asleep on the couch with a blanket over her knees and a Netflix show murmuring at low volume, I went into the bathroom, read the instructions 3 times, and spit into Fate's long plastic throat. I mailed it at the post office with the slowest line in the city. The clerk weighed my package like it was a small sin, stamped it, slid it into a sack. I walked out into a sunlight that had no intention of being kinder to me than yesterday's. The results arrived faster than I wanted. 5 days. I was at my office, a quiet cube farm that sells software to other quiet cube farms, when the email banner slid across my screen and the air in my throat decided to be optional. I clicked. Relationship. Alleged father, tested child Ava N. Conclusion: 0.00% probability of paternity. CPI Combined Paternity Index, 0.0. Interpretation: the alleged father is excluded as the biological father of the tested child. The language was almost sweet in its precision, like a surgery performed by an apologetic god. I sat very still. An intern walked by carrying a plant. Someone microwaved fish. The world, indecent, continued. I stood and walked into the bathroom, and locked the stall and pressed my forehead to the partition and thought, so this is the sentence my life was waiting for. I didn't tell Leah that night. I didn't tell her the next morning. It wasn't a plan. It was a failure of nerve disguised as prudence. Eva came by after class with a print wrapped in butcher paper. It's a map of the river made from the shapes of all the bridges, she said, unrolling it on our kitchen table. Negative space as water. My professor says I'm addicted to contrasts. I laughed because I didn't want to cry into the positive space. It's beautiful, I said truthfully. Our kitchen table has been the gallery of her life. I have spilled coffee on more masterpieces than the Louvre owns. She hugged me from the side, chin on my shoulder. You okay? She asked. You're stiff. Old, I said. The cruelest condition. She squinted at me the way she does when a block refuses to carve. Liar, she said gently. Leah came in, kissed Eva, kissed me. Later that night, after dishes and a stupid show and the ritual of checking the front door twice, I said, do you have a minute? Always, she said, which used to be true the way a chant is true because you make it so and still was. For a second, until it wasn't. I showed her the email on my phone. She read it too quickly, then again more slowly, and then a third time with the sort of concentration you reserve for a diagnosis that might include the word stage. She reached for the counter and missed, so I slid my hand under her elbow. She didn't pull away. What did you do? She asked, not accusing. A child's question. What is this new rule of physics and how do we make our house stand in it? I bought a kit, I said, because the scholarship office asked for blood types. And I remembered Ava's O positive and my O negative. And then I remembered something else. 21 years ago. Your first job out of grad school. Alan. If you say a ghost's name quietly enough, sometimes he stays a ghost. I had not. Her mouth opened and closed. And for a moment, I saw the young woman who wore thrift store skirts and combat boots to her white-walled clinic because she refused to let fluorescent lights edit her. She sat on the stool by the island. I thought you never noticed him, she said. I noticed, I said. I noticed the jokes he told in a voice that counted number of laughs, the way some men count reps. I noticed the way he touched your elbow to move you past him like your body was a hallway he owned. I noticed the night you stayed late and I came with takeout and saw his jacket on the back of your chair. She covered her eyes. I didn't sleep with him because I loved him, she said into her hands. I slept with him because I was 23, and you were working 60 hours a week, and my father had just called to tell me he was disappointed I married a man who sold software instead of being a doctor, and I wanted to be seen by someone who didn't want me to be anything but who I was in that hour. It happened twice. Then I told him we were done. He moved to Seattle. I told myself it was a mistake filed in a cabinet we never opened. She lowered her hands, and then I got pregnant. We looked at each other for a long time. Our kitchen clock ticked like a person's breath on the phone. I remembered Ava as a newborn, the quiet birth, the alarming rush of love that made me pace at 3 a.m. singing Springsteen terribly. I remembered Leah asleep with the baby on her chest, the way her hand cupped the tiny skull like a promise she couldn't break, even if she tried. I remembered the day Ava toddled into my office and pressed the B key on my keyboard 34 times, as if she had discovered a new word. Did you suspect? I asked. I calculated and recalculated, she said. You were in the numbers. I put you in the numbers every way I could. I told myself that biology is a set of chances and we'd win the one we picked. I told myself I'd tell you if there was ever a reason to tell you. She bit her lip so hard a bead of blood appeared. I am not proud of those sentences. Why didn't you tell me when she was 2, 10, 18? Because by then you were her father in every single way father can be measured. That isn't a lab report, she said. And I was a coward. Yes, but I was also a mother who thought the truth would blow a hole through the wall we had built. I chose the wall. I leaned back against the counter because my legs belonged to a different man. Alan. He tried to call me when Ava was 3, she said. I didn't answer. 2 years later, I heard he'd gotten married. That's the last She stopped. No. I saw him at a conference when Ava was 9. He had a son. We didn't speak. Does he know? I asked, already knowing. No, she said. I don't know what you are supposed to do with the feral knowledge that the child you have loved, and fed and cleaned and defended and driven to early swim practice, is not your child in the way the world means that sentence. The world is lazy with sentences. It uses the same one to mean different things and expects you to translate without a dictionary. I slept in the guest room. It's where I go when one of us has a cold or when my thoughts have started to argue loudly enough to wake Leah. In the morning, Ava texted to ask if we wanted to try the new diner downtown that puts jam in tiny mason jars like that makes toast a festival. I said yes, aside from nearly throwing up when the waitress asked how everything was and I wanted to answer fragile. Lunch was good. Ava told us about a professor who hates adjectives and a roommate who steals socks and a boy with a jawline that makes poor decisions contagious. When she went to the bathroom, Leah reached across the table and said, "We can't tell her. Not yet. Not ever." I asked. She took a breath. "If we can avoid it," she said. "If there is no medical necessity. If no one else, if Alan doesn't. If we were good at ifs," I said, "we wouldn't be here." "I know," she said. The admission cost her. I saw the price in her eyes. We lasted 3 weeks like that, carrying a box of nitroglycerin across our days, careful not to bump the corners. The third week, Ava called Leah at midnight crying. I heard only Leah's half. "Breathe, baby. I'm here. We're here." She hung up and looked at me with a face I associate with fevers and ferry terminals. "She fainted at a party," Leah said. "They took her to the she's okay. They think it's anemia." "Anemia runs on your side," I said. "Iron deficiency. Your sister had it in college." Leah closed her eyes. "They're asking for family history," she said. "They want to know if anyone has sickle cell or thalassemia. They want to know about blood types." We drove to the hospital through a city that had dimmed itself for sleep. In the fluorescent emergency department, Ava smiled like a person who knows her parents will arrive with shoes and water and jokes. Her roommate perched on a chair and looked like she was considering sainthood. The doctor was young enough to make me feel both old and safe. He asked routine questions, while a monitor traced my daughter's heart like a coastline. "Any family history?" he asked finally, scrolling through a digital checklist. "Bleeding disorders, anemia, unusual reactions to transfusions, blood types." Leah looked at me. Our entire marriage fit inside that look, and then it did not. "Her father is O negative," she said. I nodded because I did not know how to be a man who shook his head at that sentence while his child listened. The doctor typed. He said words like iron and ferritin and diet and supplements and follow-up. He never asked for proof of paternity. Hospitals aren't built to arbitrate the chaos of bedrooms 21 years ago. But when we left, when we buckled her into the car with a blanket and a sandwich we'd convinced a nurse to give us, the lie had begun to feel like a kite we were flying in a storm that didn't care whether we liked kites. 2 days later, Eva came over with a laundry bag and the pelvic tilt of college students everywhere. She flopped on our couch and said, "New topic. You two ever going to tell me why Dad moved into the guest room?" Leah inhaled. I opened my mouth, prepared to say something about snoring or back pain or marital weather. Ava, not waiting, said, "Because I'm 20, not 5. And because when I went through the mail last week there was a lab envelope addressed to you, Dad. And because I am my mother's daughter, which means I can smell a secret through drywall. There are moments when a lie is a wall protecting something, small and tender behind it. And there are moments when the lie becomes the thing, hurting the very person you think you are protecting." I didn't want to write that sentence. I had to. "Ava," I said, and my voice sounded like gravel because I'd been holding it at the base of my throat for 2 weeks. "We did a DNA test." She sat very still. Then she said, with a precision that was either inherited or studied, and the results said I'm not your biological father." I said, "For a heartbeat, I believed the floor would swallow us. For 2 heartbeats, I thought she would laugh the way she does when I claim to understand TikTok. For 3 heartbeats, I wanted to throw myself in front of the sentence like a man diving at a grenade. She did none of those things. She looked first at Leah. "Is that true?" she asked. Leah nodded, hand over her mouth. Ava looked at me. "And you did this test because of the scholarship email?" "Yes," I said. "And because once you know a question exists, it chews walls." She stared for a long time at the family photo on the bookshelf. "The one where we looked like we were paid to be happy." "Who?" she asked finally. Leah said a name I hadn't said out loud into decades. Ava didn't flinch. "I don't know him," she said. Then she stood up, shaky. "I need air," she said. "I need I need to decide what this means before anyone else decides for me. She left. The door closed with a soft click that sounded like the end of a hymn. Leah and I sat on the couch like a pair of mannequins waiting to be posed. We should have told her together, on purpose, with a therapist, Leah said. I should have told you 20 years ago. Her voice collapsed on the last words. There are 1,000 versions of should, I said. We only get this one. I moved back into the guest room. We began the paperwork forest, the kind where every tree has a fee, and a form and a signature line big enough for your regret. In therapy we said sentences we didn't know we'd been carrying. I felt invisible. I was afraid you'd leave. I wanted a rerun of my youth. I wanted a new script for my life. Our counselor asked us to define love without using the word always. We failed gloriously. Ava texted daily and rarely came over. Processing, she wrote once. Don't pick up your phones. I'll call when I can do it. Without crying or swearing. The restraint made me proud and broke me. When she finally came, 3 weeks later, she stood in the doorway with a look I recognized as the one she wore before. Jumping off the quarry rocks every summer brave. Pretending to be reckless. Okay, she said. New family rules. I get to ask questions when I want and not when I don't. You answer what you can and admit what you can't. And none of us gets to use the word real in front of father unless we're talking about time spent driving to practices and showing up for the movie you don't want to see. Agreed, I said. Throat closing. She smiled crookily. Also, Dad. Yes, you're my dad, she said. And there it was. The only absolution I will ever require. The divorce happened. The way most divorces do, with courts and papers and people who call you by your last names, like you are defendants. In a case about your own failure, the judge asked for causes, and our lawyer said words like irretrievable and breakdown and concealment. I watched Leah twist her ring until her finger went white. When it was time, I said yes to questions that once would have been unfathomable. No to the one that asked if reconciliation was likely. We didn't fight about money because money wasn't the story we were telling anymore. We didn't fight about the house because neither of us could stand the idea of sleeping in a bed where a ghost lived. We didn't fight about Ava because the judge looked at her age and at me and said, "This court does not adjudicate adult daughters." Love. I almost laughed. Almost. When the decree came, we went to the diner with the jam jars. Because we're sentimental idiots. Leah and I sat across from each other and tried to say goodbye without inventing a new language. I'm sorry, she said for the last time. Me too, I said for the last time. We toasted with coffee. We paid separately. We walked out into an air that refused to be different just because we were. A month later, Ava asked if I wanted to meet Alan. I think I should know his face, she said, if only to decide whether I want to know anything else. We met in a park on a Sunday that dressed up as spring. He was older, of course, but his smile still counted laughs like currency. He shook my hand and said, I never knew. And I believed him because his eyes did the math and came up with a deficit. Ava asked him easy questions. Where did you grow up? Do you like bitter coffee? What music made you feel like the world was yours for 3 minutes? He answered with eagerness that bumped against apology. When Ava went to the restroom, he turned to me. I'll follow her lead, he said. I don't want to take anything that isn't mine. I thought of words that had felt like weapons a month ago. Not mine. I thought of the years I'd spent learning the shape of Ava's laugh and the speed of her worrying and the miracle of her stubborn joy. I said, there's a lot that isn't yours. There might be a piece that is. Be careful with your hands. He nodded. I will. Ava came back and linked her arm through mine. I'm done for today, she said. We walked to the parking lot. She was quiet until we hit the corner. He has your dimple, she said. And I laughed because I do not, in fact, have a dimple. You know what I mean, she said, smiling. The one you get when you pretend not to cry. I never cry, I said, immediately crying. We built a new life the way people build anything worth keeping slow, with splinters. Leah and I are not friends, not enemies, something like colleagues. In the project of loving a person we made, together without a lab, we text each other photos of Ava's art shows, and dentist appointments and that one time the cat we accidentally co-adopted learned to open doors. We stand on opposite sides of gym bleachers for her gallery receptions, like we are divorced diplomats and practice civility like it's a muscle. On the night of Ava's 21st birthday, she raised a glass of bad champagne and said, to the people who showed up for me when I was small, and for the people who are showing up now, that I think I'm big. She clinked my glass and Leah's and, after a pause, Alan's, who had earned his way into the last 20 minutes of the party by being gentle. and not performing ownership. She took a sip and made a face. I prefer cake, she said. And everyone laughed, the laugh of people who have decided to keep going. I don't have advice that will survive contact with your life. Whoever you are reading this, I only have this. Sometimes the truth arrives with hospital clips and scholarship forms and a browser history you want to set on fire. If you are given the choice between a lie that protects your peace and a truth that breaks your heart but lets your child see your face clearly, pick the face. Learn the new vocabulary. Sleep in the wrong room for a while. Sign the papers you never imagined your hand could sign. Meet the man whose biology helped make your daughter. And decide who you're going to be in the space between pride and love. At 2:07 a.m., a subject line can implode a life. At 2:08 a.m., you are still the person who will drive across town with soup, who will sit in Anna and learn the names of drugs that taste like pennies, who will set an alarm to remember the iron supplement. None of that belongs to a lab. On the day I finally replied to the scholarship email with everything they wanted, I added an extra line the form hadn't asked for. Her father will show up for every appointment. I didn't sign it biological or legal or real. I signed it with my name. Because sometimes, the only test worth passing is the one your child gives you. Every time they look at you like a person who will still be there in the morning.